receive a new sprayer, what you need to do when you get it to assure that the future of your sprayer will be good and that you'll be pleased with it. First off, when you get your sprayer and you uncrate it, make a good visual of the sprayer. Walk around the sprayer, make sure that everything looks normal. Check hose clamps. Make sure they're tight, because during shipment these things can change. Check the hose on the suction. Make sure the suction is tight. Just some normal physical checks that you need to make. Now when we get ready to test the sprayer, first off you'll need to put some water in the tank. Put maybe 20, 30 gallon of water in the tank so that you'll have enough to test it. That will check all your fittings and make sure everything is tight before you try to get out on the job and you have a leaky system and you spill chemical. Let's make sure it works before we take it to the field. Now when we get ready to start a GNC sprayer, first thing I think you should look at is look at the regulator, this red knob right here. It has a thing that says start. Put it in the start position, because what that does is relieves all the pressure, and that's the position it needs to be in. Then there's a little black knob right here in the very front of the pump, and it says spraying and it says pressure release. When you start the sprayer, put it in the pressure release, and it's printed right there, pressure release. Make sure you do that. Now, come over to your sprayer. It's got an on button on it. A friend of mine bought one and he cranked on it for a half hour and it wouldn't start. He forgot to turn the button on. Turn the button on. Check to make sure it's got a choke and make sure your gas valve is open. It's got a gas valve. Normally in shipment, these gas valves get closed so that it won't let gas get down on the cylinder of the engine. So check your gas valve, put it in the open position. There's a choke. You have a choke on these. First time you start it, you probably should flip it to choke. Get a hold of your engine, give it a good pull. Normally it will start on the first pull. Flip it back. It's in the run position. When we set these units, when they leave our factory, we set the accelerator or the throttle to where when you throw it wide open, that's the correct RPM for this unit to run at when you're spraying. Don't try to idle it back. Don't try to do anything. Push it wide open to where it goes. Leave it alone. That's where it has to be to function properly. Now we've got it running. Everything's working, we think. Walk over to the other side of the sprayer and look at your clear suction line that comes from the overhead suction into your suction filter. Do a visual on this line, and it should have no air bubbles in it. It should, as it runs, it take it maybe 15, 20 seconds, it'll pick up water, and it'll clean up, and there'll be no air bubbles in this line. If there is air bubbles, we'll cover it later, but it means there's a leak someplace in the suction. And it's gotten bumped in shipment, something's loose. You've got to fix that or it won't work properly. Next thing to do, open the lid up on your sprayer, look inside, and you see an agitator where the water's returning into the tank. You should have a strong flow of liquid coming into the tank because you're not spraying, so the full force of that pump is spraying back into the agitation. That's a proper startup. Now, if you're getting ready to spray, remember, you've got this in the start position, you got this in the pressure release. Leave that in the start, reach over, flip the little black switch to spray. What that does is it puts the regulator into the system. If you leave that in the pressure release, the regulator will not work. So flip it to spray. Now we're ready to set it where we want to on the pressure. Reach over, flip it over to 80, 100, 180, whatever pressure you think it needs to be. It should come up on the gauge. This is really accurate, but it should match up real close to your pressure gauge. Next thing you want to do is walk over, get your spray gun, hold it up like this, lift the lid up, and spray into the tank. As you're spraying into the tank, You want to watch your pressure gauge. And when you spray in the tank, the pressure should just fluctuate slightly, not more than maybe 50 psi at the max. When you turn it off, it should come back up, down. If it drops dramatically, it means that something's wrong. You've either got too big a nozzle or something's wrong, which we'll go through later. That's how you start a sprayer up and to not have problems when you take it to the field.